Why is it all about racism with you blacks? Here's another ignorant statement. Blacks are even racist against other blacks. No one drags their people down more than blacks. I've heard black people and whites say this. The black people in particular are out of touch. One, we learn racism from whites. American whites. The majority of us are African American. I told you earlier, the problem is generational. There's no way you can be in this country and not get infected or affected by the racism here. From the moment our ancestors were in shackles, we were taught racism. Add the fact that it's been more or less a mere 70 years since this country was segregated between blacks and whites. Not even one lifetime has passed since segregation. We are still in the generation of moving on. And therapy. It's not an excuse. I'm stating facts. Americans of all shades, when it comes to racism and seeing how it's a real problem, we're all just mental patients with the problem we refuse to admit to. Every shade has its inner racism. Every single one of them. Every ethnicity. It doesn't matter. All around the world. But if you don't see the pattern after all of these videos, I'll spell it out. In America, everything wrong in humanity is a black thing. We own all the bad shit. White people trust each other because white is comfort. It's right. Black is dark and scary. We are violent, do crime, we're lazy, stupid, and we are racist against one another. But the truth is, we do exactly what any other red-blooded human being in America is able to do, good and bad. But many of us African Americans who have slave forefathers, we learn to be racist from the best, from the good old white slave master. So don't get mad that we're students of the game. Every skin color, ethnicity has its racism. White people don't like poor whites. They call them rednecks and white trash, and they know this to be true. Darker skinned people in the Latin community have always been discriminated against by their own people. Speaking of light versus dark, light-skinned blacks versus dark-skinned. Let's shed some light on that, because we are talking about American racism as a sickness. Let me draw your attention to these two dudes, the Hodge twins. They've been on YouTube for years. Now I find them to be hilarious, by the way. That Virginia accent of theirs just makes them even funnier. But I've got one main problem with them. See, they're real quick to call black people niggers. But when they review silly things that white people do, they never use any racial slurs at all. No cracker or honky, none of that. No fairness. Now, YouTube being entertainment, I'm not sure if this is all simply an act that they perform. I love comedians, so I can sit back and watch them and be entertained. They don't exactly trigger me like they would other people, I guess. They call themselves coons, by the way. I think it's because a lot of blacks have called them just that. It's like a badge of honor to them, I guess. Now, they could be pandering to their subscriber base. The two brothers happen to be Trump supporters and conservatives, and so is their subscriber base for the most part. But the thing is, if you shuck and jive or dance around with your language when you're trying to make money to feed your family, well, there's a slippery slope. The Hodge twins call other black people niggers, and with their accent, they sound like two racist hicks. Now here's the confusing part. They have also called themselves niggers. Right after taking a DNA test on YouTube with the results showing that they are indeed 58% black, the other being mostly white, obviously. So are they racist about themselves? They have made it clear that they identify as black, but the fact that they had to prove it shows that blacks themselves triggered them enough to take a DNA test. Do you see how much of an infection racism is? How it permeates and perpetuates even. If you're willing to say whatever in the name of money or YouTube clicks, then integrity gets lost. That is, if you've ever really had it in the first place. And if you happen to be any shade of black and you have a large fan base like these guys, then you have to be very careful in regards to racial statements and playing with the emotions of any ethnicity in these racially charged days and times. It's not smart to fuck with racial tension. Socially, as human beings, We already have a natural tendency to be around people who look like us, but racism dials that shit up to 1,000, to where if they don't look like you, then they ain't shit. Now how stupid is that? The facts of the matter are, black is black. There shouldn't be a light skin versus dark skin, but it exists. As I said, every ethnicity has racism, but in America, blacks were taught from the best. 197 million. They're not all racist, but the history is there, and the history takes time to go away. Let me direct you to another ignorant statement. Blacks, quote unquote, dragging one another down, alludes to the crabs in a barrel analogy, which is fucking trash. Let's get logical, and let's put a little life science in this. If you put a barrel of crabs in an ocean, they don't give a fuck about one another until mating season. It's not the crabs that's the problem, it's the fucking barrel. It can be a barrel of cats, a barrel of dogs, a barrel of rats. Pick an animal, try to grab one, and you'll get a hanger on trying to get out of the barrel, trying to survive, not to drag the other animal down to the barrel. With everything I've explained so far, maybe you see why blacks feel that they're in a barrel instead of an ocean of opportunity.